Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin sayyidina wa habibina wa syafi'ina wa nuri qulubina wa qurrati a'yunina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wa sallim. Nawana ta'alluma wa ta'alim wa tadhakkur wa tazkir wa naf'a wal intifa' wal ifada wal istifada wal hatha ala tamassuki bi kitabillahi wa sunnati rasulihi sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam wa du'a ila al-huda wa dalala ala al-khair ibtigha'a wajhillah wa mardatihi wa qurbihi wa thawabihi subhanahu wa ta'ala ma'a lutfin wa afiyatin birahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-'ilma ladunni wa mashraba safi al-hani ya wahhab ya ghani. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-'ilma ladunni wa mashraba safi al-hani ya wahhab ya ghani. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-'ilma ladunni wa mashraba safi al-hani ya wahhab ya ghani. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam walhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Alhamdulillah. Soon to start because I think Muqaddimah Hadramiyah so much to go to cover, so we'll always start on time now inshallah at 11:30 sharp inshallah. And you all have break before this, right? So you're not being held up by any teacher again. Correct, everybody semua break je. Okay, I'm just gonna start. Bismillah. Right, so we're at the chapter. Last week I gave you all a pre-recording. Right, so if there are any questions on the pre-recording, please just put it in the chat. I think I might have missed your questions, unless I might have been seeing it or I missed it. Right, so if any questions from last week, just put it on the chat and I will answer the questions. Otherwise I'll just continue. Right, so last week we went through the different timings and also the ijtihad in seeking out the prayer timings, which I went through specifically on travel, right? As some of our scholars have said, that the aeroplane itself, right, because because the aeroplane is moving very fast, right? Some of the scholars have said that the aeroplane is a land in itself. It's a land by itself, right? Because you're not in any land because you're moving through lands quickly. Right, so when it comes to prayer timing, when it comes to qibla as well, right, that you're always on the move, right? So it's difficult to actually ensure you are facing the correct qibla, the correct prayer time, or having the correct prayer timing. Prayer timing actually okay, can still figure it out. Right, qibla, it actually tends to move as you move, through that kind of speed, that kind of fast speed. So like what I do personally is that on the aeroplane, I will try my best to pray the best I can. I will stand, I'll find a place to stand and do it when nobody sees you. So go and stand in some place, and then before you begin praying, you already figured out the prayer timing, you have figured out the qibla as well. So after having figured out all of these things, then you stand and you pray. But for me, when I land, I will do a qada anyway. I will still qada. I will still feel the prayer was deficient from the angle of qibla. Right, from the angle of qibla, because you're moving very fast, right? So the qibla is always changing, right? So I feel that the qibla was deficient, and you cannot possibly have a yaqeen with the qibla, right? So I always do a qada anyway when I land. But on the plane itself, I will pray the best of my ability. That's how I can pray, mashallah. And on that note also, for me personally, if it's possible for me to avoid airlines that do not allow standing to pray, I will avoid those airlines. And if it's possible for me to get airlines whereby there is a prayer place, like for example Saudi Airlines, they have prayer places, right? They have like a entire musalla area there, right? You can actually pray there. Oman Air, because I know all this because Kotarim. So I only know the Arabic Airlines. I don't know all the other airlines. Don't go anywhere else, right? So Oman Air, they let us pray at the and they will even give you sujadah, them. So when you pray, the person will scold you. The one that like scold you, they will literally scold you. They will scold the steward will come and tell you off, scold you, and they'll frown at you, and they will they're very mean lah. I don't like them. Like so they will for pray. So I macam dah taubat from kata lain, tak suka lain. Right, and then they will say just pray in your seat. Then sah which one sah. Like you kata anyway. Right, so but yalah, so for me, once I identify an airline that I like, I would keep going for the airline. Only because of their solat Okay, going to the next chapter. في صلاة المحرم في الصلاة المحرمة من حيث الوقت. Right, chapter on the prayer timings to perform the recommended prayers. So first, before we go in chapter and what prayers are being prohibited at these timings, right? So very clearly, only prayers whereby the reason for the prayer happens after the prayer or during, or there is no reason for the prayer. Okay, so let me write it down. Right, this is only a very clearly only and you've taken this in drinks of Naja, I think. Right, so you should know lah. Okay, so what prayers are we speaking about for private timings? Right, we are speaking about specifically, right? So so after we have put down this condition, don't have any more questions about this So only, right, prayers that are, right, first one, done without any specific reason, right? And this is what you will call sunnah mutlaq. Right, sunnah mutlaq are sunnahs. They are not done. They are done for no specific reason. It's just that you want to pray. That's all. Okay, it's just that you want to pray. Okay, and the other one is done and done with the reason coming after the prayer, right? So for example, what? Example, sunnah ihram. Because you pray the sunnah first, then you do ihram. Right? So the reason for the sunnah came after. Right? Sunnah ihram, sunnah istikhara. Right? Because you pray the 2 raka'ats first, then you dua istikhara. Okay? So the reason for the prayer came after. Right? You pray the 2 raka'ats, then you dua istikhara, right? Sunnah hajat, right? And so on. Okay? So you pray the prayer first, then you ask your hajat. It's not that you ask your hajat first, then you pray your prayer. No, you pray your prayer first, then you ask your hajat. Okay? These are the examples. Number 3, right? Not done in the haram of Mecca. Okay? Right? Prayers that are not, so any prayer, no matter what, if it's done in the haram of Mecca, any time, tak ada haram time at all. Terus, right? No haram time at all in the haram of Mecca. Okay? I know haram on Mecca. Friday, right? I'll go to that later on. Right? Done on Friday before Zuhur. Let me see, 5, 4, 9. Not done on Friday before Zuhur. Okay. Right, so Friday, the entire Friday, until Friday prayers, you can pray whenever you want to pray and whatever you want to pray. There is no haram timing. Alright, so for Friday, from the entire way, right, before Zuhur, okay, of course after Subuh, no lah. Right, that means you say not done on Friday. I'm just make it easier now. On Friday during Zenith time. During the Zenith. We should see here in your book anyway. We're gonna come to it. Okay? Right, so once we have settled this, right? Right, so we're not talking about, right, just put it another way. I've done this. Okay, let's put it some. It's like a summary for you all. Okay, let me see, where do I put this? Cannot lah, the words are everywhere. Ya, tak apa. Okay, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Okay, tak apa. Okay, okay, the other one here, this is a green one. Okay, these prayers can be done at any time. Okay, these prayers can be done at any time regardless. What prayers are they? The first one, the reason for the prayer came before the prayer. Right? So for example, sunnah wudu. The sunnah rawatib. Sunnah tahiyatul masjid. Okay. Qada's. Qada' of fard prayers. Qada' of sunnah prayers. You can qada' sunnah prayers and you should qada' sunnah prayers if you missed out. Right, so if it's your habit to do a particular sunnah prayer and one day you missed it out, right, qada', do a qada' of your sunnah prayers so as to maintain the istiqamah. Okay, and it wasn't that Rasulullah used to do it. There was once where Rasulullah prayed Zuhur and a delegate, right, and a delegation came into Medina to the masjid, so he attended to the delegation and he did not do his ba'diyah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, so they occupied him until Asr time. Right, so all this about Asr. Right, so when Asr came in, he prayed his ba'diyah Zuhur, right, in Asr time. He prays ba'diyah Zuhur in Asr time. And here again we understand from Rasulullah sallallahu of knowing how to weigh what is more urgent, right, and what can be done later. Right, so like for example, if you're at home, you know, and you have guests that come, right, if you have guests that come, but it's your tertib, you know, to actually pray like 6 raka'ats awabin after Maghrib, you know, between Maghrib and Isha, it's your tertib, you pray 6 raka'ats, you know, awabin between Maghrib and Isha. But if guests come, you know, at Maghrib time, you pray your fardu Maghrib and you go and attend to your guests, because they're not going to wait for you to finish praying 6 raka'ats. Right, they're going to sit there and you tengah solat 6 raka'ats. I mean, you do your sedekah situ on lah, do it at night. Right, so it can be done later. It's okay. It can be done later. Just that your fardu, you do it at its time, then you attend to your guests. That is afdal. Right, that is better and that is more virtuous, right, to do that. You know, and many times people especially in our time, you know, especially when those who are beginning to learn the religion, they don't know how to prioritize what requires immediate attention and then what can be delayed later on, and you can do it later on. Right, so if someone is you know, especially when it comes to lessons, when it comes to, you know, people's rights and so on, to know how to manage what is to be prioritized and what can be delayed. Right, so okay, tamam. Number 2, right, the reason for the prayer is during the prayer, and this is only of one time, right, which is salat. The reason is the salat khusuf and kusuf. Khusuf and kusuf. Right, eclipse. The eclipse prayers. Right, the prayer is happening during the eclipse. Right, so the reason for the prayer is during the prayer, right, itself. Okay. Alright. Okay. And number 3, just to do the opposite of what we did in the red color. Right. Number 3, how come the red color hilang pula? I thought I wrote quite a lot. Okay, I don't know what happened. Right, I wrote about Jumaat semua, so hilang. Kenapa dia hilang? Why did it hilang? Oh, there. Okay. After 1 year of Zoom, still figuring out Zoom, Still don't know how to use Zoom. Okay, tamam. Okay, so number 3, just do the opposite of what we did on number right, so any prayer done in the haram of Mecca. Okay, any prayer done in the haram of Mecca, regardless. Okay, regardless. And of course, Friday before Zenith is allowed. Okay, so done Friday at Zenith, at Zenith. Okay, so there's a summary lah of this entire chapter. Alright. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So you see that for prayers that can be done, there are those that are connected to the reason for the prayer. 1 and 2, they are connected to the reason for the prayer. 3 and 4, it is connected to the place or time the prayer is done. Right? Same thing for here. 1 and 2, it is connected to the reason for the prayer, and 3 and 4 is connected to the place and time for the prayer. Okay, I'm gonna clear the drawings. No, leave it lah. Okay, so the first one is that faslun tuhramu salatu fi ghayri harami Makkah. So the first thing, they remove the first part first. Understand we're not talking about Mecca. Okay, so Mecca remove. Anything and do in Mecca, whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do lah. I can pray what you want to pray in Mecca, dah. Okay, so default rule, blanket rule. Right, so don't ask us about Mecca anymore. Okay, whatever you want to pray in Mecca, pray. MashaAllah. I had one I told this story before. My husband, when he was learning this in Tarim, like the teacher would explain this, about the haram timings and so on. And then, like, but there will be people. He will say these people, right? They'll still ask questions, and they'll still have like after you go to the whole thing, then someone raise your hand. Can I pray qada asar after I do my fardu asar? And then he say, okay. Qada, qada falls under which one? Qada falls here, right here. The reason became before the prayer. So it said, and then they will say that what if the sun is already orange? Teacher will be like, if the sun is orange or purple or yellow or blue or whatever color, you want to pray your qada, you pray your qada. Okay, just pray. Don't tak kira. Doesn't matter what color the sun is. Doesn't matter. Just pray because qada anytime you want to pray in the middle of the night pun boleh. Up to you. Okay, it's qada anytime, doesn't matter. MashaAllah. And there was once on one of my friends group dulu lah, one of my friends group, whereby somebody asked, for this is the thing about people who answer questions, having not studied fiqh. You haven't studied fiqh, you want to answer questions. Don't answer questions. Just don't answer questions. Someone asked a question about jamak ta'khir. Jamak ta'khir, or must we always pray Zohor first and then Asar, or should we pray Asar first and then Zohor? You all should know the answer, right? Is it a condition in jamak ta'khir that there has to be a sequence? There's no condition. You can pray whatever you want to pray, whatever you want to pray first. Up to you. Kan? That's why we do jamak ta'khir. It's easier. Jamak taqdim a bit more stressful. Jamak taqdim kena one after another. Kena mutawaliya. It has to be one right after the other without any gap in between, or not much gap in between. It has to be Zohor first and then Asar. Then the niyat for the taqdim has to happen within the Zohor prayer. Taqdim has like a few conditions for it to be valid. Ta'khir easy. Ta'khir, as long as you niyat in Zohor time, ta'khir Zohor to Asar, okay dah. And then later on, as time pray lah. When you pray Zohor first or pray Asar first, up to you, right? But I remember that question. The question was asked in one of my friends' group. Then somebody answered. And then I was like, that's salah. The question answer is salah, right? Someone answered saying that, you should always pray Zohor first because it's haram to pray after Asar. A few salahs there. Okay, a few salahs there. But the first salah is a few mistakes there. The first mistake is for ta'khir there is no sequencing. You can pray Zohor first, you can pray Asar, but it doesn't matter. Secondly, you can pray Zohor after Asar. Who say you can't? Right? Is it because it's haram to pray anything after Asar? No, it's haram to pray prayers that have no reason that came before it or no reason for it after Asar. Whereas Zohor is a prayer that the reason came before the prayer. Right? So of course you can pray Zohor anytime you want to pray Zohor. Doesn't matter whether it's before or after Asar. So mashallah, it's got things fiqh. I understand your fiqh well. Alright, so first and foremost, whatever is done in Mecca, blanket rule, do whatever you want to do in Mecca. I pray whatever you want to pray in Mecca. There is no haram timing in Mecca. Qat. In Arabic, we say qat. Regardless, there is no haram timing in Mecca at all. In the haram of Mecca. Okay. However, outside Mecca, yes. So when you go to Tan'im, to do your ihram, if you want to do more umrah, can you go and do your ihram at Tan'im? If you are at Tan'im, at a haram timing, you cannot pray Sunnah Ihram, right? Because Sunnah Ihram is the prayer came first, then the reason, right? So if you went out to Tan'im after Asar, you prayed Asar in Mecca, and you went to Tan'im to go and do your Ihram, at that point is after Asar, like you cannot do Sunnah Ihram. You can just do Ihram. Just take on your Ihram and you pakai Ihram and then go and do your niyat at Tan'im and then come back. You cannot do Sunnah Ihram because the Sunnah, the reason came after the prayer. So you can't do because you're in the haram timing. Right, so Haram of Makkah specifically speaks about the Masjid al-Haram. Masjid al-Haram. Right, so within the Masjid al-Haram, right, then it is you're not prohibited to pray any prayer at that time. Okay. From the rising, I'm just gonna clear this part lah. So distracting. Okay. وقت طلوع الشمس حتى ترتفع قدر رمح. Right. So from the point where the sun begins to rise until it is the length of a spear. Right. So they say basically if you hold a spear in front of you, right, if you hold a spear lah, you have a spear somewhere in the house and gala, and then you see the sun rise to that level, kind of, which is basically in our timing around 16 minutes to 17 minutes. All right, so just do at the clock lah. And at the clock 17 minutes after sunrise. So if now shuruk is 7:04, so around 7:22 you can pray ishraq if you want to pray ishraq. If you want to pray duha, you can pray duha at that time as well. All right. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad. Okay. Then the second one, the timing for Zenith apart from Friday. So apart from Friday. So Friday is again need qat, right? There is no exception for Friday. So Friday until the shadow of the sun is slightly towards the west, that means it's coming to zuhur. Right? So from the point of istiwa, ووقت الاستواء إلا يوم الجمعة, okay, except on Fridays, حتى تزول, right, until the sun goes down to zawal, that means zuhur timing. So istiwa in Singapore probably is about 10 minutes before zuhur. So right now zuhur is 1:11, right, 1:11, right. So if somebody wants to pray like sunnah ihram, or someone wants to pray sunnah hajat or sunnah istikhara, right? If you want to pray any of these sunnahs, even sunnah safar. Sunnah safar, the reason for the sunnah came after. You pray first, then you safar. Right? You pray first and then you safar. You go and go on your journey. Right? So if the reason for the sunnah came after, right, then you cannot pray that sunnah. Okay? Right, so you have to wait until, like, so at 1 o'clock, so at 1 o'clock, for example, someone say, I want to pray istikhara at 1 o'clock p.m. in the afternoon, I want to pray istikhara. You say cannot, right, because the reason for the istikhara is after the prayer. But if someone says at 1 o'clock, I want to pray duha, can I pray duha at 1 o'clock? Yes, the answer is yes, can. Right, even though it's not recommended, but you can pray duha, because duha, the reason for the prayer came prior to the prayer, before the prayer. Right, so you can pray duha at 1 p.m. if you want to, up to you. Right, mashallah. For me, I personally avoid it, right, because there is a khilaf. Because ada mazhab that says cannot. Right? There are mazhabs that says this prayer timings is not permissible for any prayer whatsoever. There are mazhabs that say that. Right, so for me personally, khuruj min al khilaf. I will avoid the khilaf. Right, so I will not pray in these timings, but you can. It's not haram. It's kena Syafi'i mazhab, you can. In other mazhabs pun, there is no such thing as qada sunat. In Syafi'i mazhab can qada sunat. Right, so other mazhabs, once you have missed a sunnah, you miss a sunnah already. So the Syafi'i mazhab, if you were occupied all the way, like for Masjid Khalid, for example, you were occupied the whole morning, you're occupied throughout the day until 1 o'clock, you have not prayed your duha. Right, you have not prayed your duha. So the class ends at 1 o'clock. Surah Bahana went to put it until 1:15. Then it baru ended. Dah lah Zuhur dah. Ustaz Anwar after this. I don't know who's after this. Right, Ustaz Alima. Dah 1 o'clock. Right, dah Zuhur dah. The whole duha not done. I didn't do duha at all today. Oh, mashallah. Right, so what do? You can qada at duha in Zuhur time if you for istiqamah. Right, but if you ended at 1 o'clock exactly, right, and then you I have 10 minutes to pray duha, right, pray lah, no problem, pray, right, if you want to, right, but if you want to avoid the khilaf, then you pray at 11 o'clock during your break. Okay, number second one, the time of Zenith apart from Friday until the shadow of the sun is slightly towards the west. Number 3, the time when the sky is yellowish, right, so before sunset until sunset. This is about you say about 15 minutes to 10 to 15 minutes before sunset. Alright, so if Maghrib is 7:15, right, 7:15 is Maghrib, so around 7 o'clock. At 7 o'clock, the sun is yellowish or orangish, right, orangish sun. So waqtul is firar hatta taghrub. Right, so when the sun is yellowish, orangish in that timing, that one is actually this is basically right before the sun, the disk of the sun begins to set. right before the disk of the sun begins to set, because the setting of the sun itself is haram to pray, right, during the setting of the sun. Of course, if you have not prayed asar, wajib for you to go and pray asar, right? So you cannot, you cannot say, oh, it's haram to pray now, so I'm going to deny my asar later on. No, go back to the first principles. Asar is what kind of prayer? Asar is a compulsory prayer, first and foremost. And secondly, the reason for asar came before asar, right? The reason came, I mean, the coming of asar timing is the reason for asar for asar to be prayed, right? So you don't say that, oh, now like the sun is rising, I miss subuh. Do I pray subuh now or not? Yes, you pray subuh now. Right? Go and pray your subuh. Right? So so you can say that, oh, but it's rising. It's a haram timing. It's haram for you to miss subuh. Right? Go and pray subuh. Right? So understand, eh? Right, number 4, after performing subuh prayer until sunrise, and number 5, after performing asar prayer until sunset. Right, so 3 of the timings is connected to the sun. See that 3 of them are connected to the sun during sunrise until length of spear, midday, zenith, sunset. Right, so from slightly before sunset till the sun has fully set, right? These are 3 timings connected to the sun. Then 2 timings connected to the performance of prayer, right? 4 and 5 is connected to the performance of prayer. So once you have performed subuh prayer, you cannot pray after that. Again, go back to our principles, right, from the very beginning of the class. If you're doing sunat subuh, you're doing subuh qabliyah after subuh, sah, can, not dosa. Right? You can do your sunat subuh after subuh. So you come to the masjid, you see that subuh is really being prayed, I mean that the jama'ah has started. What do? You join jama'ah. You join jama'ah, pray subuh. After the jama'ah has finished, you can stand up and pray 2 rak'ahs of your qabliyah, because that is your istiqamah. You usually do qabliyah, right? But you miss qabliyah because you were late to the jama'ah, right? Can, no problem, right? Same thing with asar. Right, you pray asar, right, and then if you want to pray the qabliyah of asar after asar, no problem, right? It is not dosa to do that. You can do that. Right, so again, go back to our just now green and red words just now. Okay, all right. Right, so here he says it is not prohibited to perform the recommended prayer if the reason, again, yeah, does not come after the prayer, such as a missed prayer, qada, whether it's wajib or sunnah, eclipse prayer, ablution prayer, tahiyatul masjid, recital, and thankfulness prostration. If you want to do sujud tilawah, sujud sahwi, right? Sujud tilawah, sujud syukur, anytime, because sujud is a type of solat. Right? Sujud is part of a solat. It is of the types of solat, which is why you cannot sujud when you are on your menses, and you cannot sujud without wudu, because sujud is a type of solat. It's part of solat, is a type of solat. Right? So only if one does not intend to delay these prayers to perform it during the prohibited times. Right? So so you don't on purpose delay these prayers just so you can perform them in the prohibited times. Don't do that. Right? So while it's not sinful for you to perform these prayers in the prohibited times, as mentioned, you should avoid it. Right? Because there are other madhabs, right, that disallow it. Right? So for the Shafi'i madhab, it's not sinful, but it's disliked, it's offensive to do it that way. Right? So if you can, like, move your prayers away from the prohibited times, if you don't have to perform it in the prohibited times, then don't do it. Right? Perform it earlier on. Okay. And it is prohibited to perform prayers where its reason come after, such as istikhara and the ihram prayer. Right? So this is the type of prayers that is haram to perform in the haram timings. It's also prohibited to perform prayer whereby the speaker on the when the speaker on the pulpit when the speaker is on the pulpit, except if one performs the greeting prayer tahiyatul masjid, if he is not worried that he will miss the opening takbir with the imam for Friday prayers. Right? So for example, if someone comes to the masjid, right, and this is from a hadith of Rasulullah, when someone comes to the masjid, right, this person came to the masjid and he went to sit down, and Rasulullah said to him, stand up and pray tahiyatul masjid. Right, so he stood up and he prayed tahiyatul masjid. That is from the commandment of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad. Right, so to pray that, but if he is worried, right, or he thinks that he might miss the initial takbir of the imam, right, for Friday prayers, then he is not to pray his sunnat tahiyatul masjid. Right, so if he comes into the prayer and he hears the imam ending the khutbah, and the khutbah is about to end already, it's going to be takbir ready soon, right, so he knows he can't fit in 2 rakats of sunnah prayer, then don't. Similarly, for all other prayers, so if you come into the masjid, right, and you know that the jama'ah has been that the jama'ah has been waiting for some time already, so the wajib prayer is going to be stood any moment now, right? You think to yourself, should I do qabliyah or not? Right? Should I do qabliyah or not? Right? So if you are very sure that you have enough time to pray qabliyah before the jama'ah is stood, then pray qabliyah. But if you are not sure, and you think there's a high chance that the jama'ah is going to start very, very soon, right, then don't pray qabliyah, because you can always pray your qabliyah after the prayer. You can always do qabliyah after the wajib. It is more virtuous for you to get the first takbir. Because can you imagine if you came to the masjid and you begin your qabliyah, right? You begin to pray 2 rakats. Ya Allahu Akbar. Just read Fatihah and then the iqamat starts. You know, it happens before, right? Baru just takbir enter into the prayer. Sunat zuhur. And then you're like, Allah, the imam, Allah Akbar, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. The iqamat dah. What am I supposed to do now? And then everybody forming rows around you pula. You're in the middle of nowhere. It's so awkward, right? You don't know what to do, right? And then you cannot break your prayer. You're praying, can't break your prayer, right? Of course, for sunat prayer, you can break it. It's not dosa, but it's makro. So what do? What you're not doing? You're not praying really quickly to try and finish the prayer so you can join the jama'ah. Right? So if you're not so sure, when the jama'ah is going to be started, then wait, and just pray the jama'ah first, and then you can do your qabliyah later on. I see a lot of times in Masjid Harid when the masjid was open, that we come to the masjid and then it kind of the azan was quite some time ago, and people already finished their qabliyah, and you see people coming into the masjid and they begin their qabliyah, and then they just begin like this, the Fatihah and the jama'ah started already. So if you come to the masjid, you see that everybody already dah habis their qabliyah, high chances the prayer is going to be starting soon, because everybody already finished their qabliyah. So you don't go and do your qabliyah if you came in late. You wait. It's all fiqh. For you to understand what is the most virtuous thing to do right now. To pray qabliyah at that moment is not the most virtuous thing to do. To wait for the jama'ah is more virtuous. Right? To get the first takbir, then you can do your qabliyah afterwards. It's not lesser. It's not lesser in its reward to do qabliyah after the prayer itself. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Tamam. Chapter on the call to pray about azan. Let me see. I see a few questions here. I'm going to answer the questions. What about Salat Tahiyatul Masjid? The reason is after the prayer. The reason is before the prayer. Tahiyatul Masjid is before. Okay, sorry. So your question now. Tahiyatul Masjid is that you masuk masjid first. You masuk masjid first. That's the reason. You came into the masjid first. The reason is you coming into the masjid. That's the reason. Then you pray 2 rakats of Tahiyatul Masjid. So the reason came before the prayer. Okay, same thing for wudu. You took wudu first. Then now comes the time to pray sunat wudu. So the reason came before. Whereas for hajat and istikhara, it's not that you need the hajat first or you need the istikhara first. It is that the dua of hajat and the dua of istikhara. So the prayer is to open up the opportunity to dua. So you do the prayer first 2 rakats, then you dua. So the reason of the prayer is the dua, not the need, but the dua. Okay? Understand, Alright, chapter on the call to prayer. Okay. Faslun yustahabbul azan wal iqamatu lil maktubati in lam yasilha bifa'itatin lil rajuli walau munfaridan walau sami'al azan. It is recommended, it is sunnah for a person to adhan and iqamah for every obligatory prayer, and emphasizes on the men in your house because azan is only for male, right? Whereas iqamah is for female. It is sunnah to azan for every prayer. If it's not joined, with missed prayer, this azan is only for the male, whether he's praying alone or after hearing the azan, right? So this is only for the male. Right. So for example, right, the male person, for example, the male person heard the azan, right, from the radio, for example. It's sunnah for him to still do azan after that. Right? Sunnah for him to still do azan. So whether he's praying alone or after hearing the azan, it's sunnah for him to still do azan for his own prayer and do iqamah again for his prayer. For the woman, it is sunnah for us to do iqamah only. There is no sunnah for women to do azan. Right? It's not haram. I heard someone say haram to azan. There's that day I was teaching the kids about azan and iqamah in the kids class. And so I to demonstrate the story of the azan, and how like the one of the companions got the dream, to do the azan to call people to prayer. So I demonstrated lah, right? And then mashallah, got 1 5-year-old say, Ustazah, woman cannot do azan. You cannot do azan. And I say, first and foremost, I'm teaching. Teaching can. kena correct a 5-year-old. 5-year-old trying to correct me. So I had to give my dalil to the 5-year-old. Kan? Then kena ajar 5-year-old to not I mean, they can try and clarify, but he was so confident. My Abi say woman cannot give azan. Ustazah cannot give azan. And I said, I'm teaching. Teaching can. I'm teaching you all. Okay? Can. Kena kali dalil lagi. Right, so can. It's not haram. It's just it's not sunnah. It's not sunnah for a woman to give azan. It's haram if she's doing it in front of non-mahram. Right, so hukum. Right. So but if she's teaching, by all means, if you're teaching people and once there, if you're teaching your own son how to do the azan, then by all means, if a woman is a single mother, widowed, or divorced, whatever, the fathers are around, no man in the house, of course she teaches the son to do azan and to do all his male obligations, right? Takkan, I mean, it can't be that who's she going to bring him to, unless she can find an ustaz or whosoever to teach him. But every day in the house, who's going to teach your son? You lah, right? I mean, teaching can, of course, no problem. Right? Teaching a lot of things can, under the niyat of teaching. Right. Right. So if it's so the azan is recommended to do azan iqamah for every obligatory prayer if it's not joined, right, with a mispremise as penisbat, right. So in lam yasilha bifaitatin, if it's not connected to a missed prayer, right. So for example, Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad, right. So for example, if the person, just spin this part, right. For example, if the person is performing the azan, right, so performing the azan, right, for every obligatory prayer, if it's not joined with a missed prayer, right. So this obligatory prayer, right, it is if there is a qada prayer, right, a missed qada prayer. Let me repeat myself. If the prayer is a missed prayer, it is sunnah to do an iqamah before the missed prayer, but not an azan. You don't do an azan for a missed prayer. You don't do like Allah Akbar, you don't do an azan, but you can do an iqamah if you like, right, before a qada prayer. However, for azan, no. Azan is only for prayer timings. Right, so when the prayer timing has come in, right, then you do the azan. Right, so even if it's later on, as long as you're doing the azan for the prayer timing, you can do the azan for the prayer timing, but again, only for men, right? Not for women. For iqamah, yes, you do iqamah for missed prayers, because iqamah, the point of iqamah is to say the prayer is beginning, right? The prayer is starting, right? So even if it's for a missed prayer, a qada prayer, or for a jama', you're gonna do a jama' prayer, right? Jama' zuhur, jama' asar, you do an iqamah prior to that. Let's do quickly because almost done habis timing. Okay, so that, but it's clear, right? And also for the second congregation for missed congregations, right? So if there's a second congregation for missed congregations, right, to do so again, missed meaning a qada, right? So for qada, if you're doing a qada prayer for a jama'ah or for a second jama'ah that's happening, then it's sunnah to do the azan and the iqamah for men. For women, just the iqamah. Then and for one who combines a few missed prayers or performs the combined prayers brought forward or delayed, he should azan only for the first prayer and iqamah for subsequent prayers, right? So azan is only for the first prayer and iqamah for subsequent prayers. Okay, all right. Tamam. Okay, so for women to only do iqamah, as you mentioned earlier on, right? And then he should mention this is a congregation prayer when performing the recommended prayers in congregation as a fourth funeral prayer. Right, so if he's doing sunnah prayers and they're doing in jama'ah, he should say, right, he should say salatul jama'ah, right, salatul jama'ah, right, if it's not a compulsory prayer, because sunnah prayers can be prayed by themselves, right? So if he's doing it in jama'ah, right, then he should say salatul jama'ah. And we're doing this in congregation, right, for recommended prayers in congregation. For example, tarawih. You always hear this for tarawih. Salatul jama'ah, rahimakumullah. Right, they would announce it. We're doing tarawih in jama'ah. Right, witr, they will say salatul jama'ah. Right, and they would announce for the witr. Right, whereas for prayers that are understood to be in congregation, that for example compulsory prayers or funeral prayers, then it's understood is in congregation. Whereas for tarawih prayers and then for even for Qiyamul Layl, they will announce it. They will announce Salatul Jama'ah. They will announce it to tell the people we're praying the Sunnah prayers in Jama'ah. Tamam. Right. So azan is valid if the prayer time has come in, except during the time of Subuh, where it's allowed to call the azan half the night and the first azan on Friday. And these two azans, that is done half the night and the first azan on Friday, is basically to call people to come to the mosque. All the other azans is to announce the coming in of the prayer timing. Whereas for Subuh and for Friday, it is to call people to come to the mosque. Right, so these azans are done earlier, before the prayer time, because the purpose of the azan is to wake people up or to call them to come to the mosque, to give them timing to come to the mosque, right? And then to have and of course for azan to have sequence and continuity, right? And let me see, you can finish the entire chapter. Okay, it's a bit more too much, mashallah. Okay, we'll continue the rest of it the next time round, inshallah. So which means that we stopped here, right here. So we stop at the conditions of azan, right, inshallah. So the next lesson will continue from the conditions of azan. Barakallahu fikum. May Allah reward all of you greatly, inshallah. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. You can go for your next class, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.